Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Ryan Thompson-Brown and this is the first ever episode of Curling 101 Strategy for Free with RTB. Let's get started. The purpose of this series is to help you improve from an intermediate level. So this is for all of you out there who already know a bit about the sport of curling, who know what it's about, you know the basics, but you don't necessarily understand all of the intricacies behind the strategy. For myself, I've been playing curling for about 12 years now, and at the time of this recording, I'm actually on my way to Nationals to compete in the U Sport Nationals as the skip for Western University. So I guess I know a little thing or two about the strategy behind the game, so hopefully my tips can help you learn about that strategy and the decision making that's behind it. For today, we'll cover some more broad topics just to start out with, so that way you're more well equipped for multiple aspects of the game. We'll do that with some of the illustrations from this book I have here, called Introduction to Curling Strategy by Gabrielle Coleman. So I'll use some of the illustrations from this book to kind of give you some examples of where you might use certain cases of strategy. So starting out with image number 1 here, we're going to start off with scoring multiple points when you have hammer. So when you have that last rock advantage, your main goal of each end is to score multiple points. You don't really want to just score one, you don't want to give the opponent points, you want to score as many as possible. And the main way to do that, as shown in this picture, is spreading out your rocks across the rings. So of course, your rocks have to be within the rings to count as a potential point at the end of the end. But you want as much space in between those rocks as possible, so that way it's more difficult for the other team to eliminate more than one rock at a time. As you can see in this first image, because these rocks are parallel and spread across the 8-foot, there is no double opportunity. The other team cannot do a double takeout on both of those rocks at the same time because it is physically impossible, just because they're so far apart. If those rocks were closer together, even if they're parallel, there's potentially a double there just because of the angle that's required to take them both out. In this second image here, we see one of the potential options that the white team has if they're throwing even after sitting 2 on the wings. So if they draw to the very middle of the house, so they have about 4 feet separating each of those rocks, and each of them are parallel with each other, no different in height. A double is still very tough for the other team to pull off. Because you have so much space in between those 2 from the sides, even if you put one in the middle, it's still very difficult for them to get rid of 2 at the same time. This is why when you have hammer, you want to direct the play to the wings. So what I mean by that is, whenever possible, don't play towards the middle, because that closes down your scoring area. That scoring area becomes smaller if a lot of rocks get in play in that area, making your shots potentially more difficult as the end goes on, and leaving less potential separation when you're trying to space out your multiple points later on in the end. By playing to the wings, this white team has eliminated any potential for the other team to get rid of more than one rock at a time, securing their potential for more than 1 point to this end. Now, on the other hand, let's imagine us as the team without hammer. We're trying to steal a point from the other team, or even just forcing them to one is okay, but we want to make sure that they don't score many points, and we want to make their shots really difficult. So what's the best way to do this? Well, that's playing to the middle of the sheet. So looking at this next illustration, we have a series of events of what some of the potential shots could be. So you see on the left hand side there, your potential third rock of the end. So let's imagine we're the team with the black rocks. So we've thrown that center guard. The other team doesn't want to go around because they want to go to the wing, space things out, make things easy, so they drew over there. Next, one of your potential options is throwing another center guard. This is very aggressive, but let's go on with it. The white team's next option, they could go to the wing again, but they kind of want to try to get one behind those guards to kind of have one hanging in around there, so that way they can potentially be shot rock for most of the end. But let's say they slip a little too far. Now they're behind the tee line, behind 2 of your center guards. Your next shot, you get to go around. You get to sit shot rock, you're in front of one of theirs, and you're behind 2 center guards. Your rock's right on the button. That's going to be pretty tough to beat. The other team's going to have to make some really good, really tough shots in order to get out of this predicament. At this point, I'd like to take a moment just to reiterate the importance of making your opponent's shots harder while making your shots easier. That's why it's beneficial to play to the wing, because at the end of the end, let's say there's a bunch of junk going on the wings and you're just drawing for one, you have a lot more space, a lot more real estate to draw to at the very end, as opposed to if you're playing around a center guard and it's very congested in the middle, you might have a very tough shot to even try to score one, which is why it's so much riskier to do that when you have hammer, and why you want to try to force that kind of situation when you don't have hammer. Now, a newer concept that I want to finish on is called the 5-rock rule. So looking at this last illustration that we have here, here's an example of how the beginning of an end could set up. And this will show you the difference between what was previous, which was the 4-rock rule, and what there is now, which is the 5-rock rule. So even just a couple years ago, you were allowed to peel any guard, so you could get rid of it on the 5th rock of the end. That meant that each team would throw 2, and then any guard could be removed. But now guards still cannot be removed until another rock has been thrown. So looking at this example here, you can see this is a potential start to the end. So let's say the team with white rocks has hammer, the team with black drew to the middle first, the white team threw a corner guard next, let's say the black team missed their next shot, so they threw it through or something like that, and then the white team drew around their own guard to set up some potential aggression. What does the black team do now? Well, with the 4-rock rule, because 4 rocks have been thrown, they could just go up and get rid of that corner guard, exposing the rock behind it. But now, with the 5-rock rule, that's not allowed until their next shot. And since they don't throw until the other team has thrown another one, that's technically like the 7th shot of the end. So that's a long time to go without being allowed to take out your opponent's guards. So black's only option now is you could potentially freeze over there. That's a very tough shot. Or you could try guarding yours, but that's cluttering up some things when you potentially don't want it to be. Let's say you're up in points and you don't want your opponent to be scoring a lot. You want to keep it open, but you can't get rid of that corner guard yet. You have to keep rocks in play even though you may not want to. And that's the benefit in some cases and detriment in other cases to that new 5-rock rule. It's a lot more aggressive in nature. There's a lot more rocks in play because you can't get rid of that guard until one shot later. So in summary, there's about 4 key points that we can take away from today. Number 1, when you have hammer, you want to try to play to the wings. This spaces out your rocks so they're harder to take out multiple at the same time. Number 2, when you don't have hammer, try playing to the middle of the sheet to make your opponent's shots harder and to try and steal points, shut down that scoring area for them. Number 3, just as I was talking about before, making your opponent's shots harder than yours. If yours are easier and theirs are harder, chances are you could pull out the win. And finally, number 4, keep that 5-rock rule in mind. Sure, the rules have changed in recent times, but that 5-rock rule is really good for aggression. Even if you're down in points, you always have the opportunity to come back with a new 5-rock rule. And if you're up in points, be careful because aggression can come out of nowhere when you cannot get rid of those guards yet. Alright, that's all for the first ever episode of Curling 101 Strategy for Free with RTB. I hope you feel that you took something away from this episode, something that you can apply in your strategic gameplay out on the ice. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments down below. Alright, that's all for now. I'll see you next time.